Lee Taman wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the broken engine in front of him. He had been working on starships for 10 years now, and he knew one simple truth. Everything in the universe followed rules. Machines worked because of physics. Stars burned because of fusion. There was no mystery, no magic, just science waiting to be understood. The ship he worked on was called the Constellation. It was old, scratched, and made strange noises when it flew through space. But Taman loved it. He knew every pipe, every wire, every bolt. When something broke, he could fix it. That was his job, and he was very good at it. Captain Park Min-ho walked into the engine room. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and survived them all. Taman, we got new coordinates. There's a dead station orbiting a planet called Veltharos. Scanners show it still has power cells inside. Could be worth a lot of money. Taman nodded. How dead is dead? Any radiation? Any hostiles? Clean scans. The station has been empty for 3,000 years. Easy job. Nothing was ever easy, but Taman did not say that out loud. He just grabbed his tool bag and followed the captain to the bridge. Choi Yuna sat at the navigation console. She was young, only 25, but she had a gift for finding valuable wrecks in the ocean of dead space. Captain, something is strange. I'm reading a heat signature in the station's center. It's big. Really big. Could be a reactor about to explode, Taman said, checking his own instruments. The readings are... I've never seen anything like this. It's almost like it's alive. Kim Doyen, their pilot, looked nervous. Maybe we should skip this one. I have a bad feeling. But Captain Min-ho made the decision. We go in carefully. If it looks dangerous, we leave immediately. They docked with the ancient station. The airlocks opened with a hiss of old air. Inside, the walls were covered with symbols that seemed to move in the light of their helmets. The corridors were wide, too wide for normal people. Everything about this place felt wrong. They walked for 20 minutes before they found the central chamber. And there, hanging in the middle of the room, was something impossible. A dragon. Not a small creature. Not a legend. A real dragon. Massive and terrifying, with scales that changed color like oil on water. It hung from thick chains, and weapons were stuck deep into its body. Cables ran from a metal spear in its chest to machines on the walls. The machines hummed softly, stealing something from the dragon with each pulse of sickly green light. It's real, Yuna whispered. Her voice shook. The old stories were true. Doyen started backing toward the door. We need to leave. Right now. But Taman stepped forward. His engineer's mind was already working, analyzing what he saw. The machines were draining something from the dragon. Energy, maybe? Or life itself. The spear in its chest was the key. Remove it and the draining would stop. Then the dragon's eye opened. It was huge and bright amber, and it looked directly at Taman. He felt words in his mind, not spoken but somehow clear. Help me. Taman's hands moved before his brain caught up. Captain, this is wrong. They're torturing this creature. We have to help it. It's a dragon, Taman. We don't know what it will do if we free it. We know what will happen if we don't. It will die here alone, forgotten. Captain Min-ho looked at his crew. Then he looked at the dragon. Finally he nodded. Do it. But fast, Taman rushed to the machines. The technology was ancient, but technology was technology. He understood the connections, the power flow, the locking mechanisms. His tools sparked and cut. One by one he disabled the systems. The hardest part was removing the spear from the dragon's chest. It was made of strange black metal that felt cold even through his gloves. When he pulled it free, the dragon screamed in his mind, a sound of pain so intense that Taman fell to his knees. The chains released. The dragon collapsed to the floor with a crash that shook the entire chamber. The lights in the station died instantly, leaving them in darkness except for their helmet lights. Time to go, Minho shouted. They ran through the black corridors, stumbling and falling. Behind them, alarms began to wail. Whatever they had done, they had woken up security systems that had slept for thousands of years. Getting the unconscious dragon back to their ship was nearly impossible. It was too heavy, too big, but somehow they managed, dragging and pushing and using the ship's loading equipment. By the time they sealed the cargo bay and launched away from the station, they were all exhausted. Taman stood in the cargo bay, watching the dragon breathe. Each breath was slow and painful. The creature was dying. All the damage from thousands of years of torture was killing it, even though it was free. I don't know how to help you, Taman said quietly. I fix machines. You're not a machine. The dragon's eye opened again, just a crack. A single tear rolled down its face. The tear glowed like a tiny star, bright and beautiful. It fell slowly, and Taman caught it in a small container without thinking. You will understand, the dragon's voice whispered in his mind. You will learn. Thank you for freeing me, human. Whatever happens now, I died free because of you. You're not going to die, Taman said, but his voice lacked confidence. The dragon just closed its eye and kept breathing those slow, painful breaths. Later in his workshop, Taman studied the dragon's tear under his instruments. What he saw made no sense. The tear contained energy, pure energy, but not like anything he had ever encountered. It responded to his thoughts. When he focused on it, it glowed brighter. When he stopped thinking about it, it dimmed. This was impossible. Energy did not work this way. Nothing in physics allowed this. But the instruments did not lie. And Taman, who had never believed in magic, had to face a difficult truth. The universe was bigger and stranger than he thought. There were rules he did not know yet. Laws of nature he had never learned. The dragon had called this thing essence. In the old days, people from primitive species called it magic, but it was real, and it existed, and it had power beyond anything human technology could create. Taman looked at the glowing tear in his hand, then back toward the cargo bay where the dying dragon lay. A choice stood before him. He could stay comfortable in his understanding of the universe, or he could step into the unknown. He thought about the dragon's eye, full of pain and hope. He thought about the thank you that had echoed in his mind, and he knew that some things were more important than being comfortable. The universe had rules. But maybe, just maybe, there were more rules than he had ever imagined, and if he wanted to save the dragon, he would have to learn them. Taman stood up, holding the glowing tear carefully, and walked back toward the cargo bay. Whatever came next, he would face it, because that was what humans did. They adapted. They learned. They refused to give up, even when everything seemed impossible. The dragon's tear pulsed in his hand like a tiny heartbeat, and somewhere in his chest, Taman felt an answering pulse. Something was beginning. Something that would change everything he thought he knew about the universe, about himself, and about what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of ancient powers. The story of the mechanic who did not believe in magic was just beginning. And by the end, that mechanic would become something neither fully human nor fully other, but a bridge between two impossible worlds. The dragon was dying. 3 days had passed since they escaped the station, and each day the creature grew weaker. Taman tried everything he knew. He used medical scanners, read every file on alien biology, and even asked other ships if they had information about dragons. Nothing helped. The problem was simple and frustrating. Dragon biology did not work like other creatures. Their cells had patterns that made no sense. Their bodies seemed to operate on rules that were different from normal physics. Every time Taman tried a treatment, the dragon's body rejected it, like it knew what he was trying to do and said no. This is impossible, Taman told Captain Minho. It's like trying to fix a machine when every part changes shape when I touch it. Yuna stood in the doorway of the medical bay they had made for the dragon. Have you tried asking it what it needs? It hasn't woken up since we jumped to hyperspace. But that changed on the 3rd day. The dragon stirred, and its huge amber eyes opened. The light from those eyes filled the entire room. Taman felt the dragon's voice in his mind again, stronger this time. The spear was made of dark steel. It cuts the flow of essence. Even though you removed it, pieces remain inside me. They are still killing me slowly. Then I'll cut them out, Taman said immediately, reaching for his surgical tools. Your tools cannot touch them. They exist partially outside normal space. But you have my tear. You carry it still. Taman pulled out the container. The dragon's tear still glowed inside, unchanged since he had caught it. What do I do with it? Drink it. Let the essence flow through your body. Then you will be able to reach the fragments and remove them. Everything in Taman's mind screamed that this was dangerous. Drink an unknown substance from an alien creature? Let it flow through his body? It went against every safety rule, every bit of training he had ever received. But the dragon was dying. And somehow Taman trusted it. He opened the container. The tear felt warm in his hand, warmer than it should be. He raised it to his lips and swallowed. Fire exploded through his body. Taman gasped and fell against the wall. He could see things now, things that had always been invisible. Energy flowed through everything. The ship hummed with power. Yuna glowed with the soft light of life, and the dragon blazed like a sun, except there were dark spots inside it, pieces of shadow that ate at the light. His hands moved without him thinking about it. He reached toward the dragon's chest, and his hand passed through scales and flesh without cutting. He existed in two places at once, in the normal world and in this other place where essence flowed. His fingers closed around the first fragment of dark steel. The pain was instant and terrible. The dark steel burned like ice and fire together. It tried to corrupt him, to spread its poison into his body. But something strange happened. The poison could not take hold. It slid off Taman like water off hot metal. He pulled the fragment out. It dissolved into smoke the moment it left the dragon's body. 1 down, 11 more to go. Each piece hurt worse than the last. By the 5th fragment, blood dripped from Taman's nose. By the 8th, his hands shook so badly that Yuna had to hold him steady. By the 11th, he could barely stand. But he kept going, pulling each piece of corruption free, letting them dissolve into nothing. When the last fragment was gone, Taman collapsed. The world spun around him. He felt hands lifting him, voices calling his name, but everything was far away and fading. He woke up 6 hours later. His head pounded, and his body felt like he had been hit by a truck. But he was alive. The dragon watched him from across the medical bay, and for the first time its scales looked bright and healthy. "You should be dead," the dragon said in his mind. "The dark steel poison should have killed you." "Why didn't it?" Taman sat up slowly. "I don't know. Maybe because I'm human?" "Yes, exactly that. Humans have no natural essence. You are what we call essence null. It makes you vulnerable to many things, but it also makes you immune to others. The poison could not corrupt what you do not have. So humans are magically empty?" "Your words are simple, but yes. That is why the ancient empires ignored your species. They thought beings without essence were useless, weak, beneath notice. They never considered that being outside their system might be your greatest strength." Over the next few weeks, the dragon recovered. Its name, translated into human language, was something like Velsarin. It told them stories of the old days when empires ruled the galaxy through essence manipulation. Dragons had been powerful then, but the Talvakir Dominion had found ways to chain them, to drain them, to use them as living batteries for their machines. When the Dominion fell 3,000 years ago, most dragons died with it, Velsarin explained. A few escaped. Many more were left in stations like the one you found me in, slowly dying as our essence was drained away. I had given up hope of freedom. Then you came. Are there others? Yuna asked. Other dragons still trapped? Yes, dozens, perhaps hundreds, scattered across the old Dominion space. Then we'll free them, Yuna said firmly. Doyen laughed nervously. We're one small ship. How are we supposed to fight ancient alien defense systems? Taman stood up. The essence from the dragon's tear had faded from his system, but something had changed in him. He saw the world slightly differently now. We use what we are. Humans are essence null. That means the defenses designed to stop essence users might not work on us. The young human speaks wisdom, Velzarin said. The Dominion built their entire civilization assuming everyone had essence. Their weapons, their locks, their sensors, all designed for essence-sensitive beings. Against essence-null creatures, many of their systems would be blind. Captain Minho nodded slowly. It's crazy enough to work. But there's a problem. When we freed Velzarin, we triggered alarms. Someone knows what we did? As if the universe heard him, the ship's alarms screamed to life. 3 vessels dropped out of hyperspace around them. They were sleek and deadly, made of metal that seemed to shift in the light. Energy weapons charged with a sound that made Taman's teeth hurt. A voice came through the communication system, speaking Galactic Standard with an accent that sounded like grinding stones. Unknown vessel, you carry stolen Dominion property. Surrender the dragon. Your deaths will be quick if you comply. Captain Minho looked at his crew. Opinions? We run, Doyen said. We fight, Yuna countered. Taman was already moving toward the engine room. Give me 5 minutes. I have an idea. The idea was insane. Velsarin had shed some scales during recovery. Those scales still held traces of essence energy. If Taman could route ship power through them, create a field that resonated with essence frequencies, it might confuse the enemy sensors. He worked faster than he ever had before, connecting cables, rerouting power, praying that his understanding of essence and technology was good enough. Behind him, he heard the ship shudder as enemy weapons struck the hull. Taman, Minho shouted. We need that miracle. 3 more seconds. Taman connected the final cable. Power surged through the dragon scales. A field of shimmering energy spread around the ship. The enemy weapons stopped hitting them. On the bridge, Yuna stared at her instruments in disbelief. They can't target us anymore. Their weapons are trying to lock on, but they can't find us. Because we barely have any essence, Taman explained, running to join them. Their sensors are designed to find essence signatures. We're like holes in their vision, and the field I created is scrambling what little signature we do have. Doyen grinned and grabbed the controls. Time to show them what humans do best. We improvise. The battle that followed was unlike anything the enemy expected. Their essence-based weapons slid off the ship's hull harmlessly. Their targeting systems kept losing lock, and Doyun flew the constellation like a madman, using every trick of conventional space combat that the essence users had forgotten. They could not win a straight fight. But they did not need to. They just needed to survive long enough to escape. And with Doyen's flying, Taman's improvised essence field, and the enemy's confusion, they managed exactly that. Hours later, in hyperspace and heading away from danger, the crew gathered in the cargo bay. Felsarin looked at them with something like respect. You fought Dominion hunters and survived. That has not happened in 3,000 years. Perhaps there is hope after all. Perhaps essence null beings are exactly what this galaxy needs. Taman cleaned his tools, his hands still shaking from adrenaline. We got lucky. Next time might be different. Then we get better, Yuna said. We learn, we adapt. That's what humans do, and so it began. A small crew on a small ship with one dragon and a crazy plan. They would free the enslaved dragons. They would fight an empire's remnants. And they would do it using the one advantage nobody had ever considered. That being powerless might be the greatest power of all. 3 months passed. The constellation had become something strange, neither salvage ship nor warship, but something in between. The cargo bays now held 7 freed dragons. Each one had been rescued from a different prison station. Each rescue had been dangerous, and each time they had learned something new about fighting an enemy that thought in essence while humans thought in physics. Taman stood in his workshop, studying a map of known Dominion stations. His hair was longer now and dark circles shadowed his eyes. He had not slept properly in days. 15 more dragons were still trapped, and every day they stayed imprisoned was another day they grew weaker. You need to rest, said Hanjiwoo. She was a new crew member, an engineer who had joined them after hearing about their mission. 30 other humans had joined too, drawn by the impossible nature of what they were doing. Word was spreading across human space. Someone was fighting the Dominion remnants and winning. I need to solve this problem, Taman replied. He pointed at the map. This station on Kardesh 3 is different. It has 3 times the defenses of the others. Our usual tricks won't work. Belzarin entered the room, the dragon's massive form barely fitting through the door. It is also a trap. The remnant commanders know our pattern now. They are waiting for us. Obviously, Taman agreed, but there are 12 dragons inside. We can't leave them. Captain Minho arrived with Choi Jae-hyun, their new tactical officer. She was young but smart, with a gift for seeing patterns in combat. The other ships vote to skip this target. Too dangerous. 3 more ships had joined their cause now. Small crews, human volunteers, all willing to risk everything to free the dragons. They called themselves the Network, and they were growing. If we skip it, we're telling the Dominion they can protect their prisoners, Jae-hyun argued. That encourages them to move all the dragons to heavily defended stations. An ancient dragon named Drokan spoke from the doorway. His scales were gray with age, and his voice in their minds felt like stone grinding. The young human is right. In my long life, I have seen empires rise and fall. They all make the same mistake. They think walls make them strong, but walls become prisons for both captive and guard. Captain Minho made his decision. We hit the station, but we do it smart. The plan took a week to develop. The Constellation and 2 other ships would attack from the north, drawing all attention. Meanwhile, a small team would approach from the asteroid belt in modified mining pods. The pods were essence inert, barely showing up on any sensors, using simple chemical rockets that the Dominion's advanced systems would overlook. Taman would lead the infiltration team. With him would go Jiwoo for engineering support, Yuna for navigation, and Park Sunho, a former soldier who claimed he was too stubborn to die. Velzarin and a young dragon named Sylvan would go too. They were small enough to fit in the pods, but powerful enough to help once inside. The approach took 18 hours. They drifted through space debris, moved on ballistic trajectories with no power, and once simply stopped moving for an hour while an enemy patrol ship passed close by. Taman spent the entire time reviewing the station's layout, trying not to think about all the ways this could fail. When the assault began, it was loud and bright. The 3 human ships attacked with missiles, railguns, and captured essence weapons they had modified. The station's defenses responded instantly, firing back with beams of pure essence energy. Nobody noticed 5 small pods landing on the far side of the station, in a crater where sensors had been damaged centuries ago. "We're in," Taman whispered into his tight beam communicator, beginning infiltration. The station's maintenance tunnels were a maze of corridors and conduits. They should have been impossible to navigate. But the designers had assumed intruders would have essence signatures. The automated defense systems literally could not see the humans properly. To essence-based sensors, they were like blank spots, confusing holes in reality. But physical barriers still worked. They had to avoid security doors, bypass locked gates, and once Sunho nearly got killed by a defense turret that worked on simple motion detection instead of essence sensing. "The dragons are below us," Syl then said in their minds. "I can feel them. They are weak, very weak." They found the prison chamber 90 minutes after entering. 12 dragons hung from chains, drained and dying. The setup was more advanced than earlier stations. The Dominion remnants were learning from their failures, making better prisons. Jiwoo studied the locks. "These aren't standard. They're designed to detect any essence manipulation and respond with lethal force. I need at least an hour to crack them." "We have maybe 20 minutes before the assault team has to retreat," Yuna said, checking her communicator. "They can't hold much longer." Taman looked at the chains, then at Velsarin. "Could you break these? With essence manipulation?" "Not without triggering the defense systems. The moment I try, the chains will kill everyone in this room." Taman thought fast. The locks detected essence manipulation. But what if the manipulation came from someone essence null? Someone the sensors could not properly track? He pulled out a container. Inside were 3 more of Velzarin's tears, carefully preserved for emergencies. "What if I use these? What if I try to break the locks with essence, but since I'm essence null, the sensors get confused? The feedback could kill you," Velzarin warned. "Your body is not meant to channel this much power. First time for everything." Taman opened the first container and drank the tear before anyone could stop. Him reality shattered into colors he had no names for. Essence flooded through him, burning like lightning through copper wire. He reached for the first lock. His hands, glowing with stolen power, grasped the mechanism. The lock's sensors detected essence manipulation and prepared to activate defenses, but the sensors could not properly target the source. The essence was there, but the being wielding it barely existed to their perception. The system hesitated, confused, and in that moment of mechanical uncertainty, Taman forced the lock open. 11 more times. 11 more tears. By the 7th lock, blood ran from Taman's nose. By the 10th, his hands shook so badly that Jiwoo had to hold him steady. By the 12th, he collapsed the moment the final chain fell away. He woke to alarms screaming and the freed dragons already moving. They were weak but determined. With Velzarin leading them, they fought toward the surface using whatever strength remained. Taman stumbled along, supported by Sunho, while Yuna found escape routes through passages that were not on any map. The facility's automated defenses tried to stop them, but the dragons drew most of the fire while the humans used simple explosives to blast new exits. Above, the assault team pushed harder, taking damage but creating openings. One ship did not make it. The final argument went down, protecting the evacuation, its crew of 11 dying so others could live. But 43 humans and 19 dragons escaped. The facility, its systems overloaded by trying to target essence null intruders wielding dragon tears, collapsed in on itself. Back aboard the Constellation, medical teams treated the wounded. The freed dragons rested in the cargo bays, and Taman slept for 16 hours straight, his body exhausted from channeling more power than it was designed to hold. When he woke, Velsarin was watching over him. "You are changing, engineer. Not just your body, but your understanding. You are beginning to see what essence truly is. Not magic, but another law of physics you were blind to before." "We can't break physics," Taman muttered. "No. but you can exploit it in ways its masters never imagined. That has always been humanity's gift. And it may be what saves us all. Over the next few days, Taman noticed the changes Velsarin had mentioned. His eyes had golden flecks in them now. Sometimes, when he was very tired, he could sense energy flows without needing to drink essence. The repeated exposure to dragon tears was leaving permanent marks on his biology. It troubled him. He had always been human, always been proud of being human. Now he was becoming something else, something in between. But when he looked at the 19 freed dragons, healthy and growing stronger each day, he decided the price was worth paying. Some things mattered more than staying comfortable. Some things were worth changing for. The network was growing. More ships joined. More humans volunteered. More dragons were freed. And the Dominion remnants who had ruled through fear and power for so long were learning something they had forgotten: that the most dangerous enemies were not always the strongest ones. Sometimes they were the ones who refused to accept that strength mattered. Sometimes they were the ones who looked at an impossible situation and said, "We'll find a way." Sometimes they were humans who did not know when to quit. The war continued, and every freed dragon, every successful rescue, every impossible victory proved the same thing over and over: that humanity, despite having no essence, despite being considered weak and irrelevant, could fight and win against powers that should have crushed them, because humans had one advantage no amount of essence could match. They were too stubborn to know when they were beaten. And in a universe that ran on ancient rules and older powers, sometimes stubborn refusal to lose was the most powerful weapon of all. 6 months into the rebellion, everything changed. The network controlled 8 star systems now. Over 200 dragons had been freed. 7 ships flew under their banner, from the small constellation to a massive cargo hauler called Second Sunrise that had been converted into a floating refugee center. But the cost had been terrible. The Dominion remnants no longer treated humans as minor pests. They had committed real military force to crushing the rebellion. 3 human colonies had been destroyed in retaliation strikes. Dozens of ships had been lost. Hundreds of people had died, and then they lost Captain Park Minho. It happened during a convoy escort mission. They were moving refugee ships to safety when Dominion hunters ambushed them. Minho took command of the Starbreaker and drew enemy fire away from the civilians. The convoy escaped. Minho and his crew of 17 did not. They held the memorial service in the observation deck. Dragons and humans stood together in silence. Yuna read the names of the dead. Doyen stood with tears running down his face, saying nothing. And Taman felt something break inside him. That night he found Velsarin in the cargo bay. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. Every plan I make, someone dies." Minho believed in this war and it killed him. "Yes," Velsarin said simply. "That is what war does. It takes believers first, then why continue? Because the alternative is worse. Before you came, we were dying slowly, forgotten with no hope. Your Captain Minho understood something important. There are things worth dying for, not because death is glorious, but because some futures are worth reaching, even if we do not survive to see them. That's not comforting. It is not meant to comfort. It is meant to be true." Before Taman could respond, alarms screamed through the ship. Jaehyun's voice came over the speakers, urgent and frightened. "Emergency jump. Dominion fleet just appeared in the system. 20 capital ships, maybe more." What followed was 3 days of running combat. The network ships scattered like leaves in a storm. They used every trick they had learned about hiding from essence-based sensors. But the Dominion had adapted. They were using essence null tracking technology now, probably stolen from captured human ships and reverse-engineered. Their hunters were relentless. The constellation took multiple hits. Life support failed in 3 sections. The main drive stuttered and nearly died. And then, just as they prepared for one final hyperspace jump to safety, disaster struck. The core essence regulator cracked. The device, a piece of captured Dominion technology they had been using to power their hybrid systems, fractured down the middle. Green energy leaked from the crack, making the air smell like burning metal. "We're dead in space," Jiwoo reported, her face pale. "The regulator is destroyed. Without it, we can't jump, can't run, can barely maintain basic power." "How long to replace it?" Yuna asked. 3 hours if we had proper facilities and spare parts. We have neither." Through the viewport, Taman could see the Dominion hunters turning toward them. They had maybe 15 minutes before those ships arrived and destroyed them. He was already running toward the engine room. "Velzarin, I need you!" The dragon followed, squeezing through corridors that were too small. In the engine room, Taman pulled out the cracked regulator. It pulsed with dying light, essence energy leaking away into nothing. "It's not just broken," Taman said. "The essence inside is destabilizing. If it fully collapses, the feedback will tear through the ship and kill everyone aboard." "Then we eject it," Velzarin suggested. "We need it. Our hybrid systems won't work without an essence regulator. We'll be defenseless." Taman stared at the device, then at his own hands. Hands that had channeled essence before. Hands that bore scars from forcing his essence-null biology to do things it was never designed to do. An impossible idea formed in his mind. "What if I became the regulator?" "Absolutely not," Velzarin said immediately. "The energy flow required would burn through your body in minutes. You are not built for this. Nobody's built for what we've been doing. But we do it anyway. That's the human way. We adapt, we improvise, we refuse to die when we're supposed to." Taman, no. Yuna stood in the doorway. She had followed them, had heard everything. "We'll find another way." "There isn't time." He was right. Through the hull, they could hear the enemy weapons charging. The Constellation had 10 minutes left, maybe less. Taman connected the regulator's interface cables to his neural jack. He had modified his own skull months ago to better interface with Dominion technology. Now those modifications would either save them or kill him. He placed both hands on the cracked crystal and opened himself to the flow of essence. It was like grabbing a star with his bare hands. Energy poured through him in a torrent. This was not the controlled channeling of a single tier. This was the full power of a ship's drive system. Enough essence to tear apart a small planet. His nervous system screamed. His cells began to burn. Every instinct told him to let go, to stop, to save himself. But if he stopped, everyone died. Taman held on. He understood now, in this moment of perfect agony, what essence truly was. It was high-energy physics operating on principles his species had been blind to. And understanding meant he could manipulate it even as it killed him. The ship came alive. Power surged through dead systems. Lights flickered on in sections that had been dark. The hyperspace drive spun up with a sound like singing crystal. Taman had 10 seconds before his heart exploded from the strain. He used those 10 seconds to channel enough energy for one jump. Then he fell, his heart stopped. His brain activity flatlined. By every measure that mattered, Lee Taman died in that engine room. His body burned from the inside out by forces no human was meant to touch. Yuna screamed. Jiwoo ran for medical equipment, and Velzarin moved forward, ancient power gathering around the dragon like visible light. "No," Velzarin said. "You do not get to die." "Not after everything," the dragon cried. A single tear fell, but this was not like the others. This was not essence to be consumed or channeled. This was Velzarin's own life force, given freely, without any expectation of return. The tear fell onto Taman's chest, directly over his stopped heart, and something impossible happened. The essence from the tear did not burn his cells. Instead, it wove itself into them, repairing damage that should have been permanent. His heart began to beat again, but differently now. It pulsed with both blood and a faint current of essence. His burned nervous system regrew, but the new pathways carried both electrical signals and essence flows. His damaged cells regenerated, but they were hybrid now. Human structure reinforced with draconic resilience. Taman opened his eyes. They glowed pure amber, no white remaining. "What did you do?" he whispered. "What you did for me," Velzarin replied. "I gave you a part of my heart so yours could continue beating. You are still human, engineer, but you are also more now. A bridge between two types of existence. I can feel everything." Taman's voice was full of wonder and fear. The ship systems, the energy flows, the life forces of everyone aboard. It was overwhelming and terrifying and beautiful. Is this what you always sense? This is what all essence-sensitive beings sense. Welcome to a larger universe. Over the following weeks, Taman learned to control his new perception. It was difficult. Sometimes the constant awareness of energy flows gave him headaches that lasted for days. Sometimes he accidentally channeled essence without meaning to, causing small items near him to float or glow. But he also gained understanding. Deep fundamental understanding of how essence technology worked. He began designing hybrid systems that combined human engineering with essence manipulation. Weapons that hit harder, shields that lasted longer, engines that ran faster. Things neither approach had managed alone. Other humans saw what had happened to Taman. Some were frightened, but others volunteered to undergo similar procedures. They wanted to become bridges too, to gain the ability to fight the Dominion on equal terms while keeping the adaptability and innovative thinking that made humanity dangerous. Not everyone survived the transformation. The first 3 volunteers died despite Velzarin's best efforts. Their bodies rejected the essence, or the process went too fast, or they simply were not compatible. But the 4th volunteer, a woman named Songnari, survived. Then a man named Kang Minseo. Then others. Slowly, carefully, a new force emerged. Humans who could sense essence but thought like humans. Who could use ancient powers but approach them with modern scientific understanding. The war began to turn. Battles that would have been losses became victories. Rescues that would have been impossible became merely difficult. And the Dominion remnants, who had built their civilization on the assumption that essence sensitivity was the ultimate power, found themselves facing an enemy that broke all their rules. Because humans who learned to use essence did not use it the way essence-sensitive species did. They did not follow tradition or hierarchy or ancient teachings. They experimented. They modified. They combined essence manipulation with human technology in ways that made no sense to traditional thinking. A year after Taman's death and resurrection, the network liberated the last known dragon prison. The freed dragons, combined with their human allies, had dismantled the Dominion remnants' infrastructure across 40 systems. It was over. After 3,000 years of slavery, the dragons were finally free. And humanity, the species everyone had dismissed as powerless and irrelevant, had been the ones to free them. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Lee Taman stood on the observation deck of the Constellation, watching construction crews build the first hybrid academy. It floated in space, a massive structure where humans and dragons would study together. Humans would learn essence manipulation. Dragons would learn mechanical engineering and physics without the mystical traditions that had limited them for thousands of years. It had been 2 years since Velzarin's tear had brought Taman back from death. 2 years since his heart had started beating with both blood and essence. In that time, everything had changed. His eyes still glowed amber. His hair had streaks of color in it that had not been there before, colors that shifted depending on the light. When he was angry or excited, small sparks of essence energy sometimes danced across his skin. He was no longer purely human, but he was not dragon either. He was something new. "You're thinking too much again," Una said, walking up beside him. She was captain of the Constellation now, promoted after leading successful campaigns across 3 star systems. Her uniform bore medals she never wore unless ceremonies required it. "I'm always thinking too much." "True." She smiled. "The academy opens next month. Are you ready?" Taman would lead the research division. It was his idea to push boundaries, to make both species uncomfortable by teaching them to think in ways that went against thousands of years of tradition. Some dragons protested, saying he was destroying the sacred nature of essence. Some humans worried he was making them too dependent on something that went against human nature. He ignored both groups. "I'm ready," he said. "Someone has to show them that the old categories don't work anymore." A dragon elder named Korveth had challenged Taman in the council last week. "You are creating beings that fit nowhere. Neither human nor dragon. Neither essence null nor essence sensitive. What future do they have?" Taman had looked at the ancient dragon and said simply, "A better one than what we had before." Because the hybrid approach was working. Human understanding of physics combined with dragon sensitivity to essence was producing innovations neither species had achieved alone. They had developed faster-than-light travel that did not require hyperspace gates, medical techniques that could cure diseases that had killed millions, and most importantly, an understanding of the universe that bridged the gap between ancient mysticism and modern science. Doyen joined them at the viewport. He was an admiral now, commanding a fleet of 30 ships. He still flew like a madman when he got the chance, weaving between asteroids for fun and giving his crew heart attacks. "The last of the Dominion remnants just surrendered," he reported. "The war is officially over." "No," Taman corrected. "That war is over. But there will be others. The galaxy is big and we've only explored a small part of it. There are other powers out there, other threats." "Let them come," Una said. "We're ready." That night, Taman sat in his workshop alone. It was late and most of the crew was sleeping. He pulled out a small container from a locked drawer. Inside was the first tear Velzerin had ever given him, preserved perfectly in stasis. He had never used it. It was a reminder of where everything started. A mechanic who did not believe in magic, who thought the universe ran on simple rules he could understand. That person seemed very far away now. The door opened. Velzerin entered, the dragon's massive form filling the small space. Over 2 years of freedom, the dragon had grown stronger, scales gleaming with health and power. But there was also a tiredness in those amber eyes. The weight of centuries of memory. You kept it, Velzerin observed. Seeing the tear, I keep a lot of things, reminders of who I was before. You miss being fully human, it was not a question. Taman did not bother denying it. Sometimes. It was simpler. I understood where I belonged, what I was. And now you belong everywhere and nowhere. Velzerin settled down, making himself as small as possible in the cramped workshop. That is the burden of bridges. They connect two places but are part of neither. Do you regret it? Saving me, changing me? Never. You saved me first, remember? You gave me freedom when I had given up hope. What I gave you in return was small compared to that gift. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside the window, stars shone in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, freed dragons were rebuilding their civilization. Human colonies were expanding into new systems, and hybrid academies were being built on a dozen worlds, places where the future was being shaped by people who refused to accept the limitations of the past. The council wants to give you a title, Velzerin said eventually. First bridge, they're calling it. The first being to truly exist between essence null and essence sensitive states. I don't want a title. I know, but you'll accept it anyway, because it will make the political process easier and you're practical enough to do things you don't like if they serve a purpose. Taman laughed. You know me too well. I should. We share a heartbeat now. Literally. Velzerin's voice in his mind was warm, almost amused. Every time your heart beats, you pulse essence through your body. That essence carries a pattern, a resonance. It matches mine because my tear created it. In a very real sense, we are connected more deeply than most beings ever are. Is that why I can sense you even when you're on the other side of the station? Yes, and why I always know when you're in danger or hurt or simply very tired and refusing to rest. I'm not that bad. You fell asleep in your workshop 3 times last week. Jiwoo found you twice. The third time you woke up before she arrived and pretended you had been working all along. Taman had no good response to that. He changed the subject. What will you do now? The dragons are free. The war is over. You could go anywhere, do anything. I will stay here, with you, with the network, because this is not an ending, engineer. It is a beginning. Velzerin's mental voice grew serious. For 3,000 years, my species was enslaved. We lost our culture, our knowledge, our sense of who we were. Now we must rebuild, and we must do it differently than before, or we will make the same mistakes. The Academy will help. The Academy is essential, but more than that, we need to stay connected to your species. Humans push boundaries because you don't know they exist. You try impossible things because nobody told you they were impossible. That perspective, that stubborn refusal to accept limitations is what saved us, and it is what will keep us from becoming stagnant again. Weeks later, the Academy opened. 300 students enrolled in the first class, half human and half dragon. They came from all over the known galaxy, drawn by the promise of learning things no school had ever taught before. Taman's first lecture was simple. He stood before the mixed class and said, "Everything you think you know about essence and technology is probably wrong. The dragons will tell you essence is mystical and sacred. The humans will tell you that only measurable, repeatable science is real. Both groups are wrong, or rather both are right but incomplete." He held up his hand. Essence energy crackled around his fingers, visible as golden light. This is essence. The dragons call it the fundamental force of life. But it's not mystical. It's physics. Very strange physics that most species can't perceive directly, but physics nonetheless. And like all physics, it follows rules. Once you understand the rules, you can use them, bend them, exploit them. A young dragon student raised a claw. But surely essence manipulation requires years of meditation and spiritual training. No, it requires understanding and practice. The meditation and spiritual stuff is just one way to achieve that understanding. There are others. Taman gestured to a human student. Your species is essence null. You can't sense essence naturally, but with the right implants and training, You can learn to perceive it. And because you're coming at it from outside, you'll see patterns the dragons miss. You'll ask questions they never thought to ask. Over the following months, the Academy produced its first breakthroughs. A team of hybrid students developed essence batteries that could store power for years without degrading. Another group created medical scanners that combined human technology with dragon sensitivity, able to detect diseases earlier than ever before. But the biggest breakthrough came from Taemin's own research. Working with both human engineers and dragon essence masters, he developed a process that allowed essence null beings to temporarily gain essence sensitivity without permanent biological changes. It was a drug, synthesized from dragon tears but modified with human chemistry. One dose lasted 6 hours. During that time, a human could sense and manipulate essence like a natural sensitive. When it wore off, they returned to normal with no side effects. Some dragons called it blasphemy. Some humans called it dangerous. But to Taemin, it was the ultimate proof of his philosophy, that there was no hard line between essence and technology, between mystical and scientific, between one type of being and another. There were only beings at different points on a spectrum, and with the right tools, anyone could move along that spectrum. 5 years after the war ended, the Free Coalition had grown to include 60 star systems. Dragons and humans lived together, worked together, sometimes even formed families together. Hybrid children were born, beings who could sense essence naturally but thought with human flexibility. The galaxy was changing. Old powers watched nervously as this new alliance spread across the stars. Some tried to resist, a few even attacked, but each time they learned the same lesson the Dominion remnants had learned, that the most dangerous beings were not always the strongest ones. Sometimes they were the ones who refused to accept that any challenge was insurmountable, any problem unsolvable, any boundary uncrossable. Lee Taemin stood once again on the observation deck of the Constellation, now more of a symbol than an active ship. He was 40 years old now. Though the essence in his body made him look younger, his heart still beat with both blood and dragon tears, a constant reminder of the day he had died and been reborn. Velserin joined him as the dragon often did. They had spent so much time together that words were rarely necessary. The connection between them went deeper than friendship, deeper than gratitude. They were bound by essence and experience, by shared struggle and shared victory. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had never found you?" Taemin asked. "If we had skipped that station, moved on to the next salvage job? I would have died. My species would have slowly gone extinct, and your species would have remained essence null, unaware of the larger universe that existed just beyond your perception. So we saved each other. Yes, that is what bridges do. They connect. They make possible what was impossible before, and you, engineer, are the first bridge, but you will not be the last." Taemin looked out at the stars, at the ships moving between them, at the future being built by beings who refused to be limited by what they were born as, and he smiled. He had started as a mechanic who did not believe in magic. He had become something else entirely, something new. His journey had killed him and brought him back changed. It had cost him his humanity, at least the simple, uncomplicated version of it he had once possessed, but in return he had gained something more: understanding, connection, purpose, and the certainty that every impossible thing was just a problem that had not been solved yet. The dragon's tear still pulsed in his chest, keeping time with his human heart. A reminder that magic and science were just different words for the same truth, that the universe was stranger and more wonderful than anyone imagined, and that the only real limitations were the ones people imposed on themselves. Lee Taemin, the mechanic who had not believed in magic, had learned the most important lesson of all. That believing or not believing was irrelevant. What mattered was being willing to learn, to change, to become something more than what you started as. And in a galaxy full of ancient powers and older rules, that willingness to transform was the most powerful magic of all.